The Trump administration has released their 2018 budget proposal. The White House has sent Congress a $4.1 trillion spending plan that relies on faster economic growth and also steep cuts to programs for the poor in the hope of balancing the government's books over the next decade.
Budget Director Mick Mulvaney says the budget the Trump administration is proposing presents a fresh perspective to growing the economy while exercising fiscal strength.
Yes, you have to have compassion for folks who are receiving the federal funds, but also you have to have compassion for the folks who are paying it. And that is one of the things that is new about this president's budget. What else is new? It's new in that it balances for the first time in at least 10 years. The last time we looked, we couldn't find a President Obama budget that balanced ever. I think he tried a couple times to convince us that primary balance, which was balance without regard for interest payments on the debt, was balanced. We reject that. We get to an actual balance on this budget within the 10-year window. It begins to reduce the size of the debt relative to the size of the economy in year one. Okay? That's how important it was and is to this president to try and bring some fiscal discipline.
All right, let's bring in Heather Timmons, White House correspondent for Quartz, who joins us from Washington. Heather, thanks so much. So, first of all, how is the president's budget proposal being received on Capitol Hill?
Well, he's managed to craft something that people all across the political spectrum hate. We're hearing from John McCain that it's dead on arrival. We've heard from Tim Ryan, the Democrat from Ohio, that it's going to cause a bunch of misery and suffering. So we're hearing from people all across the spectrum that the cuts are too draconian and that the math doesn't quite add up.
You know, earlier Speaker Paul Ryan responded to critics in Congress that the proposal is pretty much dead on arrival. I want to play a soundbite from that for you.
Sure.
I don't think I've served in Congress ever where somebody didn't say that about a president's budget. Look, this is how the rhetoric typically happens. Here's what I'm happy about. We finally have a president who's willing to actually even balance the budget. The last president never proposed, let alone tried to balance the budget. So we have a president that is giving us an actual balanced budget plan. It's a plan to produce economic growth. Clearly, Congress will take that budget and then work on our own budget, which is the case every single year. But at least we now have common objectives. Grow the economy, balance the budget. So we are now on that common ground, and we will have a great debate about the details on how to achieve those goals.
Is this budget really feasible, Heather?
Well, it balances the budget based on an assumption that no one thinks is going to happen, which is 3% GDP growth. And Director Mulvaney has presented this as a sort of a patriotic belief. If we believe that we can get to 3%, we will get there. And thinking any less is thinking less of America. But the reality is we haven't had several years of 3% GDP growth since the tech bubble of 2000. So it's just not economically, it's not financially possible.
And Heather, we actually heard from former Treasury head Larry Summer. He wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post saying that Trump's budget plan has, quote, an egregious accounting error. So is the math off here?
Well, it does also, and Larry Summers also compared it to believing in the tooth fairy, which is a nice idea. And it's great to think that money is going to show up under your pillow, but it doesn't really happen in grown-up life. Yeah, it uses the tax cuts, and it decides that the tax cut revenue will both help balance the budget and increase growth, and it can't do both.
Heather, you talk about these tax cuts. I mean, reducing Medicaid spending by $800 billion. These are issues that voters came to him with the promise that he wouldn't do these cuts. So how does he reconcile that with his base?
I don't know. This is the most surprising thing about this budget, is that it is something that, as I said, everyone can criticize. Trump voters can criticize. People can see how it will directly impact their lives. And so why creating something that will be so unpopular and no one thinks is going to pass anyway is the mystery of this budget, really.
Heather Timmons, White House correspondent for Quartz. Thank you for joining us, Heather.
Thank you.